Hey everybody, thanks for coming over. This is Amodeus, and today we're going to test out some defense scaling damage with the Dark Mercenary Ailsa. So, looking at her stats, you can see that we built her defense percent, crit damage defense percent with a heavy focus on crit rate subs. And that's important because she doesn't have a crit rate buff when you ascend her. Now, one thing I do want to point out when we look at this gear here is that we chose Adept because while Ailsa is one of the few defense scaling champions in the game, her basic attack does not scale on defense, which means that we have to lower the cooldown of the skills that do, which unfortunately takes her out of the mortal keen setup we would normally want to go with and puts her into an Adept keen setup. But let's actually look at her skills so that we can understand those a little bit better before we show off the damage. Okay, so Ailsa's basic attack is called Knack for Survival. Basically, every attack she makes reduces the next attack's damage on her allies by 10%. This can stack up to 5 times, and this is an amazing skill, and probably what she's best known for. Unfortunately, it scales off of attack and not defense. And this is why I chose not to have her on attack speed for this video, and instead went with defense on her first gear slot, or second gear slot. Yeah, I think it's second gear slot. So, Shield Throw is her first defense scaling attack, and it is an arc attack, which is great because it's more than one opponent. It's got a 2-second provoke, which is also great, and it has a lowered cooldown. She's below 75% HP. And as you can see with her current build, this attack will deal 8,500 damage based on her defense. But let's see what that looks like in practice. So here we are on board 710 to test this out. So Shield Throw's arc is pretty standard, and without buffs or defense breaks, she hits for about 5k. So it's not that impressive, but it does hit multiple targets, so that could be impactful with wave clears. We'll have to see about that in a second. So her next skill is Shockwave Fist. And this is a cone attack that is really a wave clear skill because it pushes back enemies while dealing defense-based damage. And as you can see, this is about 12,000 in potential damage. But let's actually see it in action. That'll help out more. Let's go back to 710. And as you can see, the area effect for Shockwave Fist is a narrower cone. And the attack actually does 7,000. Which you expect to do slightly more than Shield Throw, but once again, just not Earth Shatter. Ailsa's last skill is called Brash Assault. Now, it doesn't have a tooltip, but it says it's a damage-based attack, so we're going to have faith here. This is a jump mechanic skill to, again, help with waves, because when she lands, she deals that defense-based damage, and she gains the damage reflection buff. But let's actually see what that does in practice. So right back to 710, and as you can see, the jump area is very nice, and the area of effect for the damage is good also, because this is all about jumping to piles of enemies to do wave battles. Now the damage is double shockwave, actually. I'm pretty surprised. It's about 14,000, which is nice considering that this is a jump skill with a 360-degree area of effect. Now let's go ahead and see how she does in a couple of our basic dungeons. So we'll do Elder Drake 10, and this obviously is the pre-flight speed team, but let's just go ahead and toss her in there and see if that damage mitigation can fill the role of the healer for a speed team. All right. Oh, I'm so glad in this new update that they're getting rid of that cutscene. Okay, so if we look right here, like obviously exactly what we talked about a second ago, where she's jumping into these piles of enemies, dealing damage, and then chaining that directly into the rest of her skill set is great. Now, as you can see, the waves go pretty clear, but based on this team, it goes pretty clear anyway, so we'll have to look at the damage report at the very end to see how much of an impact time-wise she's really adding. The team normally runs sub 1 minute, so we'll have to see if that is going to be impacted by her presence. Now, this is one of the things I do like about Ailsa, is that she's so durable because of the high defense, that as long as she's not defense broke, she's really, really great for just about everywhere. Okay, sped right through that. It's pretty standard fare as far as a pre-flight team goes. It's about the same time, so, you know, not too bad. Oh, I don't know. I like the gold. I don't know. What am I going to up that to? I guess it could be 24 max, so I'll keep it. So let's look at the damage. So if we look at the damage right here, 165,000 damage. I'm actually pretty surprised by that. That's actually pretty good damage. It's pretty on par with Mana's. and obviously much better than Zircon from a damage perspective. So let's go ahead and check out some other dungeons real quick. Maybe we should just toss her into a dungeon with a bunch of other damage dealers so that we can go ahead and see. So let's, we got all elemental dungeons this weekend. So let's go ahead and just do one, and we'll toss everybody in there. And let's see what goes on. So here might be a fun comparison. We'll just toss a whole bunch of damage units in there, and then we'll throw Manus. Yeah, let's throw Manus in there because I think she should be pretty comparable to him as far as Manus goes from a damage build perspective. So we'll get them in there and let's see what happens. She was as close as she was to the Ink Ninja. Now, hopefully that changes after Update 3 because that's a little rough. Especially since Ailsa is a support unit. She's a tank. And let's switch over to Steel Widow. And we'll actually see her in that role. Because in my Steel Widow team, I actually run the Dragon Knight. So she'll be able to fill in for that role pretty directly. Now, Dragon Guard is going to get a reduction in the amount of damage that he does in based on defense because he's just a little strong now based on those updates that we just heard about. So it could be entirely possible that if you were using him to speed up your runs a little bit, that Ailsa will be a good replacement. Although that Undying buff is just a little bit more uber powered than damage mitigation, especially if you're going for a damage build where there's a lot less chance that you're going to stack multiple damage reduction for your team with Ailsa. So she did exactly what we thought she was going to do in those waves, cleared them pretty well, sub 40 seconds through the wave. So that's, you know, pretty standard fare once again for my team for Steel Widow 10. We'll have to see how she does overall on the back end because I wonder from a damage reflection standpoint if that's calculated, because if she takes that web blast from the Steel Widow while that's active, I wonder how much damage that does. That's a great question. Maybe we can get something on Discord and we can get that cleared up a little bit later, but we'll have to see. So pretty successful run. Wish it was less than 1 minute. So angry. Those flat stat 5 stars. Or flat stat legendary pieces. So let's look. So, man, you can see right there, pretty accurate as far as predicting she was going to be on par with Amodeus in that role. So that's good to know. Especially since I think that means that she could be a viable unit for speeding up slower teams. So I think we've kind of come to the conclusion here already that the defense scaling damage, at least it works. It's not superb. It's not the best. But I would say that it is a great alternative build for Ailsa. And we'll have to look at defense-based monsters in the future to see how they scale. But all in all, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. Have a great weekend. Bye.